Hi there, this is Kissy, and today I wanted to talk about the integration of the divine masculine and the divine feminine union. Conceptually, I know that it makes sense to realize this in a third dimensional realm as a partnership, a relationship, your divine counterpart. And I know that conceptually on the mental realm, many can relate to the divine masculine feminine integration as a idea that we all have the divine masculine and feminine within, and we integrate them together. But the concept and the third dimensional understanding of it is not enough to actually fully integrate our divine masculine and feminine. So, what is that exactly in a practical day to day life? It means that, for example, I am here in a physical form as a female. As my role as a divine feminine on the physical representation of that, I am also aware on a mental realm that there is a divine masculine and feminine within me that is represented externally in my partner. In this case, for myself, it's represented in my partner. But beyond the 3D relationship, you also recognize that my expression is the divine masculine, where my impressions are my internalized realm. My yang is the feminine realm. Don't mind the noises in the background, please. I do have a baby at home.
Hi, Mommy.
Hi, baby. So, divine masculine and feminine doesn't only show up in our intimate relationship, it also shows up in the intimate relationship with our own yin and yang, our physical self with our spiritual self, our mental self with our emotional self, our physical experience with our internal experience. And so, how that also can play out in our reality is if you can observe your day-to-day life practically in the big schema of life among humanity, you can see as we are a species, an intellectual species, but also realize where your energy signature fits into that big picture. So your expression is your yang self. And so if I, as a female representation, I emit the energy, I am the divine feminine physically, in physical form. But in action form, I represent the masculine energy. Because the actions are masculine. So if in a society that as a female you are conditioned to receive energy, but your actions are externally giving off energy, then that's what balancing the divine masculine and feminine actually is. So going further with my example, I can give you a scenario. You can have a housewife at home and her husband working. That's divine feminine, divine masculine. The physical representation man is doing the actions, physical representation of the masculine, and in the body, the form of the representation of the divine masculine. The woman is internal, is the female, is inactive as we would look at it from the standpoint of working out there and staying in there, staying indoors, staying within, being in the spirit. And being in the spirit or being in the inner world, in the inner reality, within the home, behind closed doors, unexposed to the world, that would represent the physical feminine representation of the divine feminine, of the yang realm. So integrating those two aspects of yourself in itself is the divine integration, that although it sounds like, oh yes, a concept in your head that makes sense, practically experiencing it is very different, because you can be a very dominantly yang person and operate from that standpoint. But if you don't disidentify from your day-to-day, you can't see where the imbalance is. So I'm going to give you my personal experience just so it makes more sense. It's the only way I can express it. I have always been conditioned to be very practical, daily routines, doing the details of life, okay? The things that usually the masculine role in society takes on. And I know there's a lot of powerful, independent women that are going to relate to this. However, I'm coming from my personal culture. I'm coming from my personal life experience. And what I want to say with that is, in my reality, the roles were as such, where you got to look at your childhood, because that will tell you what you believe in the role you play in life. So if I believe that my mom was a caretaker and stayed home and nurtured, and dad paid the bills, did the job, took care of the finances, came up with the ideas and the plans and the projects to guide the family. If I felt that in my personal life I was seeking out someone to do that for me, or I didn't want to play the role that my mother played, and in not wanting to play the role that my mother played of the stay-at-home wife and let the husband decide what to do and where to go and how to do it, I rebelled against the feminine side in me, within me, where I took actions outside of myself. I made my own choices. I got the jobs. I went out there to make my own money. I didn't want to be under a man's decision making. I didn't want to submit to the divine masculine within myself.
Mommy. Hi, Mommy.
Hi, baby. I'm sorry, I don't want to submit myself as that type of divine feminine. My divine feminine was very much there internally, but I wasn't comfortable in the role of letting my partner lead, because I was extremely independent and extremely strong. So playing the role in society that the man is the strong one and the man knows what to do and the man is the one that goes and comes up with, in my reality, I had not up to this point met a man that had better direction than me in terms of what's best for the family. A man that understood practically what to do for survival needs. There wasn't a man in my reality that was providing safety for me that I couldn't provide for myself already. And so it looked on the outside surface. Why does she have failed relationships? Oh, she's really, controlling, or she's very this, or she's very that. But it's not about control. It's about being a powerful woman and not even knowing it. It's about being hyper independent, where assuming that because a man is in society is supposed to play that role, I cannot hurt that ego, and I have to submit to that ego that's guiding me in the wrong direction, knowing full well that I'm being guided in the wrong direction. It's like, no, let's do this. No, let's make it happen that way. No, let's do that. And so that's what I mean by the integration. But here's the kicker. Realization. Aha moment for me was realizing that that's the part of me I had to let go. I was so conditioning myself. My ego was so dependent on being that role, the masculine role, that in control, knowing what to do, that I never allowed someone else to take the reins. And with all good reason, at least initially. But when there's potential there for someone to make better decisions than you, and you don't allow them to do them, and you don't express them as a woman to your man in a society where the man should know what to do and the woman should submit to her man and say, okay, or we're here together, but does he, because of these roles that he's a man, he should know better, and she's a woman, she's supposed to not hurt his ego or know more than him. I know those are harsh, judgments, harsh truth, but in society we can't deny that these are the roles that are conditioning us. No matter how much we're on the external saying we don't believe in these things, saying we don't fall under these rules or these conditions, we have to see that we do. A lot of my experience I've seen where women are afraid to be powerful. Women are afraid to know better because they're shunned, not just by the men that they're whose egos are being deflated, but by the women who submit to those men, who fear those men and can't stand up to those men, will make you look defiant or troublesome, problematic, too feisty. And I'm not saying to be this boss bitch where you're truly being like overtly, domineering. We're not talking about that extreme. Talk about your day-to-day personality, your day-to-day ways of taking control of a situation, knowing how to handle, what's the best way to handle this. And I find that very many powerful women that don't know they're powerful because their life experience has taught them that they cannot exert that awareness. They deflect it or defer it to a higher authority out of fear or out of programming, out of a fear of fitting in. And honestly, from where I stand, what I learned is that my partnership, I am more yang externally than my partner. Externally, he was more passive. He was comfortable taking, his desk job and just doing his job where I wasn't, and I was doing what most men in our society would do is, put up for the other job in a bigger position and, power, power, power. It was internal power that I was looking for, not external. And I think that's where most of us make the mistake. And I know I might be rambling and I'm probably jumping from one subject to another. I might have to edit the crap out of this to make a coherent statement here. But I have to just put it out there. Because I don't know if other people are understanding or relating to this information in the same way that I am receiving it. I feel like we're in a society where we believe that, divine goddess and divine god and the men's role and the women's role. It's not about the roles externally. It's about our balancing those roles in ourself. Because as within, so without. So you cannot have that divine relationship externally if you don't have it with yourself. And so it's about getting in touch with that opposite side of you, the one that you don't like to show, the one that you don't express to the world, the one that doesn't make you feel comfortable. That's the role you need to be into more, because you've done so much of what you are comfortable with and so much of what you just do because you do. And when you just do what you do, it's easy for that to be a blind spot, and you don't realize that you're doing what you do out of a condition that says if you don't do what you do the way you do it, things will fall apart because you're not trusting in faith that the other aspect of yourself can handle it. And that you're externalizing it into another person. So if I'm distrustful that if I stay home and do nothing, meaning what most people would see as nothing is take care of my kids, make sure the home is clean, cook, meditate, take a nap with my baby, make sure he's enjoying his life, bringing him to nature, letting him explore, spending quality time with my grown children, talking with them, sharing ideas with them. Don't mind the noise in the background. That's Zen pouring water on the carpet outside. So I want you to see that for me, that was nothing. For me, that was nothing. So that's like not giving value to the divine feminine that is innately in me. The rejection of that in my mother for myself, not making my mother wrong for it, but just not wanting that for me. I didn't want it for me. And I realized it's not a matter of what you want and don't want. It's a matter of being in balance. It's a matter of what matters. It's a matter of what is innately you. You understand that? That applies to how we see our father and our mother. That is our divine masculine and feminine understanding. If we're too logical and practical, too much powerful expression of our thoughts and ideas and just our practical actions every day, we're missing out a beautiful aspect of ourselves that is creative and passionate and trusting and divine, a part of us that's deep and explorative and emotional and chaotic and just impractical, but necessarily an important part of our being, our animal instincts, our intuitive essence. We miss out on that entire spectrum. And so if I can just, the awareness that I had was this. I have a relationship with a man that in society I am externalized. I take actions. I'm more logical or practical. And he's more creative, intuitive, introverted, and all of those beautiful things. But just like him needing to integrate his divine masculine and feminine, looking at it from my personal perspective, I would end up projecting onto him those qualities that I don't see it, that I'm not externalizing. Because I externalize the divine masculine in so many ways, other than my gender, the way I think, and even the way I process my feelings, a lot of the times are very masculine in nature. Because I like it that way. I love logical thinking. I love not being gushy. I love not getting too much into those emotions that it feels uncomfortable for me personally. However, I have a depth that is, for humanity, a compassion and empathy that is there. I just don't want to show it like out there, Oh, poor baby. That is not my nature. That's the nature that I frowned upon, ridiculed within, mocked as part of not being the cool side of me, the part of me that I wanted to show. It just didn't feel comfortable. And I know a lot of men can relate to that, as well as a lot of very externalized, powerful women. And by powerful, I'm not saying that the women that do not exert themselves externally are not powerful. As a matter of fact, they are probably more powerful. Not probably, definitely. The internal power is way more powerful. Well, it's equal in power, I should say, but it's undervalued. Equal in value, but completely overlooked and undervalued. And if we can, as women, that were raised to be strong and independent so that you don't submit to men, that rebelliousness inside you is an imbalance. You have to find that those aspects matter too. And there's a power in that, because men that exert power over you are really just insecure within. So they're overdoing the masculine to hide a suppressed feminine. Or a... Son, stop that please.
Hi, Mommy.
Hi, baby. Throwing water in my face.
Let me look.
Thank you. Thank you for the rock. I appreciate it.
Ooh.
Okay, but don't spray water on me anymore. Okay, I think I've rambled long enough. I think I've made sense to anyone who understands what my sense is. I would love to hear from you. I would love to chat with you and see if we can talk about this further. I love this topic because I feel that this is the next generation of humanity, where we've physically separated into two beings, male, female. And you'll start to see that physical representations of gender roles changing, our societal roles changing, our perspectives shifting, our dynamics getting more confusing, because there's so much more complexity in our nature. We're so much more complex than we're willing to witness, experience, express, understand, look at. But it all begins with self. It all begins with really looking at yourself and integrating you. That means being internalized enough to see your external behaviors and thought patterns and emotional patterns. Being able to step outside of your emotions enough to see them for what they are, outside of the reactionary functions that we are conditioned to having. Anyway, that's for another topic, for another day. I look forward to hearing from you guys, and we will talk soon. Take care.